I'm Sophia Anderson. I'm 28. I built my tech company in a cramped MIT dorm room while everyone, especially my father, told me to be realistic. 4 years of rejection, sleepless nights, and sacrifice led to this one day in May, graduation day. Clear blue sky. My mother in the crowd, waving, my brothers beside her, and my father, stiff, expressionless, in a perfect suit. I was next in line to walk the stage. My phone buzzed in the hidden pocket of my dress. A text from my father. "Don't expect any help from me going forward. You're on your own. No, I'm proud of you. No congratulations. Just that." They called my name. I forced my legs to move. Smile for the camera. Take the diploma. Keep breathing. As I stepped off the stage, my phone buzzed again. Jennifer, my CFO. Her voice was shaking. "Sophia, the IPO priced at $40 a share. That's a $1.1 billion market cap. You're officially a unicorn." 10 minutes after my dad cut me off, my company made history. I looked toward the crowd. He was staring at me, phone in hand. We locked eyes. And for the first time in my life, I didn't see doubt. I saw respect. But that was just the beginning. Because what happened after this ceremony, in front of my whole family, was a confrontation I'd been waiting for my entire life. If you're watching right now, drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from. Hit that like button and subscribe. Because this is the story of how my father's doubt became the sweetest billion-dollar revenge you've ever heard. Growing up in the Anderson household meant one thing. I was never the priority. James and Thomas, my older brothers, were the future of Anderson Building Supply. Me, the one expected to clap politely from the sidelines. My father, Harold Anderson, wore his success like armor. He'd built his construction supply business from nothing in the 1980s, and he never let us forget it. In his mind, hard work, discipline, and a sharp business sense were in our blood, but only for the sons. For the daughters, support, not lead. When I was 8, I wanted to go with him and my brothers to the office one Saturday. I stood by the front door, jacket zipped, sneakers tied. He looked at me and laughed. "This is boring stuff, princess. Why don't you help your mother with dinner instead?" That was my first taste of the glass wall between us. I wasn't excluded because I wasn't interested. I was excluded because I was me. My mother, Elizabeth, was the perfect corporate wife, immaculate home, perfect hostess, never contradicting my father in public. In private, she would lean down, whisper encouragement in my ear, then quickly add, "Just don't let your father hear about it." She loved me, but she'd accepted her place in the family hierarchy, and she thought I should too. I didn't. Numbers made sense to me. Code made sense to me. In 3rd grade, I won the state math competition, beating kids 2 grades older. My father came to the ceremony, shook my hand like a polite acquaintance, and said, "Cute that you like playing with numbers." When my teacher called to suggest advanced classes, my father thanked her, hung up, and never mentioned it again. By high school, I was teaching myself programming late into the night. I built a scheduling app that my school actually used to manage extracurriculars. The local paper ran a story about it. My father glanced at the article, then shook his head. "Computers are just a phase. Real business happens face to face." That was the refrain of my teenage years. What I loved was temporary. What my brothers were learning was important. On our 16th birthdays, my brothers each got a new car. On mine, I got a laptop. He said it was for schoolwork. He didn't know that laptop would become my lifeline. When it was time to apply for college, I didn't tell him I was aiming for MIT. My guidance counselor helped me fill out the forms in secret. The day the acceptance letter came, my mother cried with pride. "My father?" He scoffed. At dinner, I told him, "MIT accepted me." He set down his fork. "What are you going to do there? Waste 4 years when you could be getting real experience? Engineering's not for girls, Sophia. You'll struggle, get discouraged, drop out, then what?" "I won't drop out," I said, keeping my voice steady. He leaned back in his chair, smirking. "We'll see. I'll pay for 1 year. You keep a 4.0, work part-time for your expenses, call home weekly. 1 year. Then we'll see if it's worth my money." The night before I left for Cambridge, my mom sat on my bed. "Your father means well. He just wants to protect you from disappointment." "No," I said, folding the last of my clothes into my suitcase. "He doesn't believe in me." I zipped the suitcase and made a silent vow. I would never answer phones at Anderson Building Supply. I would build something of my own, something so undeniable even Harold Anderson couldn't dismiss. MIT was everything I hoped for, and harder than I'd feared. Orientation week was a blur of brilliant minds from around the world. For the first time, no one questioned if I belonged because I was a woman. The only question was if I could keep up. I took a full load of computer science and business classes while working 20 hours a week at the campus bookstore to meet my father's condition. 4 hours of sleep a night, every night. One evening, my roommate Natalie found me slumped over my keyboard. "You're going to burn out." "I can't slow down," I mumbled. "Dad's only paying for 1 year. After that, I need scholarships or I'm out." By midterms, exhaustion was a constant ache, but my grades were flawless. In my algorithms class, I earned the highest score, catching the attention of Professor Alan Blackwell. After class, he called me over. "That encryption solution you built, have you thought about its commercial applications?" I hadn't. I'd been too busy just staying afloat. But Blackwell saw something in my code. He introduced me to grad students working on similar problems. We formed a small group: Zach Torres, Diana Chen, Marcus Washington, and me. We met in my dorm room every Sunday. Our mission? Build an encryption system that was unbreakable yet easy to use. Most security software sacrificed usability for protection. We believed we could do both. Every Sunday night, my father would call. "How are your grades?" "All A's." "And the job?" "Still working." "Good. Any thoughts about what you'll do when the year ends?" I never told him about Secure Connect. I knew exactly what he'd say. By April, we had a working prototype. Blackwell urged us to enter the university's annual business competition. $50,000 in seed funding for the winner. "We're not ready," I protested. "You're more ready than you think," he said. The night before the competition, I called my mother. "We might win some money tomorrow. For a business idea." "That's wonderful, honey. Your father always says business is about solving problems. Sounds like you are." "Do you think he'd be proud?" I asked before I could stop myself. Silence. "I think he'd be surprised," she said. "But someday he will be proud. I already am." The next day, we won first place. The university published a press release with our photo holding an oversized check. I sent the link to my parents. Hours later, my father's reply came. "Playing entrepreneur on the university's dime. Focus on your grades." I stared at the words, feeling the familiar mix of disappointment and resolve. Then I put the phone down and got back to work. That summer, I didn't go home. Instead of family barbecues and sleeping in my old bed, I stayed in Cambridge, working out of a tiny rented office just off campus. The $50,000 prize money paid the rent, a few basic servers, and a stipend so small it barely covered groceries. One Sunday evening, I called my father. "You won't need to send money for sophomore year. I got an academic scholarship." "So you're dropping out," he said, his tone almost pleased. "No, I'm continuing while developing the business." Silence on the line. Then, "Businesses need customers. They need revenue. Who's buying your computer program?" I didn't have an answer. We had no customers yet. "That's what I thought," he said. "At least you're not wasting my money anymore." Sophomore year, I reduced my course load to part-time. The rest of my time, all of it, went into Secure Connect. 18-hour days, 7 days a week. Pitching to anyone who'd listen. Hearing no so many times, the word lost meaning. After our 15th rejection, Marcus tossed his pen onto the table. No one trusts security software from college students. I leaned back, staring at the cracked ceiling. Then we stopped looking like college students. We rebranded. New website. Professional pitch decks. Matching jackets for presentations. We rehearsed until we could pitch in our sleep. And finally, someone said yes. A small financial advisory firm willing to take a risk on us. Contract value, $10,000. When that payment hit our account, I bought the team pizza and sodas. We ate on the floor of our office, boxes scattered around like trophies. I thought about calling my father, telling him we'd landed our first client. But I didn't. Not yet. That one client led to 5 more. Those 5 to a dozen. By the end of sophomore year, Secure Connect was bringing in enough revenue to hire 2 more developers and upgrade to a legitimate office space. I was no longer just a student. I was a CEO. But with growth came pressure. The summer after sophomore year, disaster hit. One of our financial clients experienced a data breach. It wasn't our fault. They'd ignored our installation guidelines. But in the court of public opinion, we were young, untested, and easy to blame. An emergency meeting was called. Marcus looked grim. "We can't afford a lawsuit. We barely have enough runway for 3 months." I hadn't slept in 48 hours, bouncing between trying to recover their data and defending our reputation. "We need a lawyer," I said. "We also need money to pay that lawyer," Diana added. We'd been bootstrapping until now, using prize money and revenue to grow, but a legal fight would drain us. We had no choice but to seek investors. The next 2 weeks were a blur of investor pitches. We had traction, technology, a growing client list, but the responses were painfully consistent. Promising tech, but your team lacks experience. Come back when you have a seasoned CEO. Have you considered bringing on a male co-founder? Might help with credibility. That one stung the most. After one particularly humiliating rejection, I sat on a park bench, my head in my hands. Against my better judgment, I called my mother. Maybe Dad was right, I said quietly. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Your father's been wrong about plenty, she said sharply. Don't make him right by quitting. The next day, I had a meeting with Catherine Bailey of Artemis Ventures, one of the few female-led VC firms in Boston. I went in expecting another rejection. She listened to my pitch without interrupting, asked questions that proved she actually understood encryption. Then she leaned forward. You remind me of myself 20 years ago, brilliant, determined, and completely underestimated. I'm going to invest $500,000 for 10% of your company, and I'll connect you with the best tech lawyer I know. I almost cried, but she wasn't done. You need to promise me something. When you succeed, and you will, you'll remember what it feels like to be dismissed because of your age and gender, and you'll help the next young woman with a brilliant idea. I promise, I said, and I meant it. With Catherine's investment, we hired the lawyer, settled the client dispute for a fraction of what they'd threatened, and overhauled our onboarding process to prevent future disasters. But Catherine gave me more than money. She became my mentor, my advocate, my door opener. She introduced me to potential clients, helped refine our business model, coached me on leadership. By the end of junior year, we had 15 employees working from a converted warehouse in Kendall Square. Revenue was steady, though profitability was still a dream. Every dollar went back into growth. The weight of responsibility was constant. These people trusted their jobs to my vision. What if I failed them? What if my father was right? The pressure showed. I developed insomnia, stress migraines, dropped 15 pounds without trying. My academic advisor called me in. You can't keep doing both at this pace. Choose your company or your degree. I chose the company, but I stayed enrolled part-time. I refused to be a dropout. That would hand my father the satisfaction he'd been waiting for. Senior year brought our breakthrough. Our team developed a major innovation in our encryption algorithm, more secure and more efficient. When we announced it, our client list jumped from regional firms to national corporations. Monthly revenue tripled in 60 days. We hired rapidly, bringing in seasoned professionals who cost more than we could afford, but whose expertise we needed to scale. One hire changed everything. Jennifer Lawrence, a veteran CFO who'd guided 2 startups to acquisition. She was 24 years older than me and had the calm, steady presence we lacked. In her first week, she sat me down. You've got something special, but you're growing too fast without controls. Let me help you build something sustainable. Under Jennifer's guidance, we restructured our pricing model, improved cash flow, and began thinking long-term. Then came the client that changed my relationship with my father forever, Allied Financial. 7 figures, the kind of deal that made headlines. I called him, couldn't resist. Dad, we just signed Allied Financial. A pause. That's a significant client, but tech companies come and go. Are you profitable? We weren't, yet. That's what I thought. Don't let it distract you from finishing your degree. I hung up, deflated. Would anything ever be enough? Jennifer overheard the call. Your father doesn't get it, does he? He never will, I said. My father was the same way, she told me. I stopped trying to make him proud and started demanding his respect. You may never get the first, but you can get the second. I held on to that. The next 18 months were a blur, expanding from 40 employees to over 120, moving into a glass building downtown, raising a $12 million Series A led by Catherine's firm. TechCrunch ran the headline. Secure Connect, the female-founded security startup, taking enterprise by storm. My mother sent me the link with one line. So proud of you. My father said nothing. 18 months after landing Allied Financial, Secure Connect felt unstoppable. We doubled our client list, grown to over 120 employees, and moved into a gleaming glass building downtown. Our logo shone above the entrance like a promise. But momentum is a hungry beast. It eats cash faster than you can raise it. Jennifer kept warning me. We need a proper Series A. If we keep growing at this rate without more capital, we'll be out of runway in 6 months. The thought of pitching to investors again made my stomach knot. But she was right. This time it was different. We had a track record, big-name clients, real revenue. We raised $12 million led by Catherine's firm. The press loved it. TechCrunch ran, Secure Connect, the female-founded security startup taking enterprise by storm. Inside the company, spirits were high. We were already talking about new markets, product lines, and eventual IPO. I could almost taste it. Then came the first hit. A major competitor, older, bigger, better funded, launched a product eerily similar to ours. Rumors swirled that they'd tried to poach one of our lead engineers. Then they went further, spreading whispers to potential clients that our tech wasn't reliable. It was irritating, but it didn't shake us until the second hit landed. One Tuesday morning, our systems flagged a breach attempt. Not from a careless client this time, from the inside. Someone was trying to steal our proprietary code. The irony was bitter. The security company under attack. Our defenses held, but the damage was done. Rumors of security issues leaked into the market. A Fortune 500 client delayed signing a contract worth millions. "We need to control the narrative," Jennifer said in an emergency meeting. "How?" I asked. Half the market already heard the whispers. We moved fast. Legal letters, press outreach, internal audits. But the weeks of firefighting pulled me away from another critical front, finishing my degree. For years, I'd been chipping away at it part-time. Now, with just a few credits left, my advisor called me in. "You can graduate this spring, but you have to commit to finishing the last requirements. No more delays." I wanted it, badly. Not for my father anymore, but for me. But the company was bleeding focus. The IPO window was approaching and slipping. By early spring, the board was divided. Half wanted to push hard for an IPO within the year to capitalize on our momentum. The other half urged waiting until we had steadier footing. In the middle of that tug-of-war, I made the decision. We'd prepare for an IPO. That's when the third hit landed. A key witness in a pending legal dispute, a client who could clear us of breach liability, backed out at the last moment. Without their testimony, the case would drag on, hanging over our financials like a storm cloud. The board panicked. Our bankers called, hinting that unless we settled fast, the IPO could be delayed indefinitely. I sat in my office at midnight, staring at the city lights through the glass wall. My inbox was a war zone. Investors demanding updates, lawyers negotiating settlements, engineers scrambling to meet deadlines. Jennifer came in quietly. "You need to go home." "Can't," I said. "If this settlement doesn't happen, everything we've built could stall." "If you collapse, it won't matter anyway," she said. But I couldn't walk away. Not now. We settled. The terms weren't what I wanted, but they removed the immediate threat. Still, the weeks of uncertainty had rattled everyone. Staff, clients, investors. The day the papers were signed, I walked into the office to find Diana waiting with 2 coffees. "I don't know how you do it," she said. "Do what?" "Stay standing when everything's on fire." I smiled faintly. Truth was, I felt anything but steady. For the first time since we'd started, I doubted whether we'd make it. And then, an unexpected lifeline. Our bankers came back with revised IPO projections, better than before. The market was hungry for security companies, and despite the noise, our client retention was near perfect. Jennifer leaned over my desk, spreadsheets in hand. "If we move fast, we can file confidentially before graduation. We'd be in the perfect position to price within weeks." Graduation. I'd almost forgotten it was coming. I looked at my calendar. Board meetings, investor calls, legal reviews, and squeezed in the last few classes I needed. I didn't tell my father. I didn't tell anyone outside the company. That spring, I was juggling 2 countdowns, one to crossing the MIT stage, the other to ringing the opening bell as CEO of a public company. The stress was suffocating. Some nights, I woke at 3 a.m., convinced I'd forgotten something critical, a clause in a contract, a number in a filing, a conversation with a regulator. But when the SEC accepted our confidential filing without delay, I felt the first spark of real hope in months. Jennifer looked at me over lunch the week before graduation. "You realize the IPO pricing could hit the same morning you walk?" "If it does," I said, "I'm keeping my phone on vibrate." I wasn't joking, and that's exactly how it happened. The morning of my graduation, my phone buzzed with Jennifer's voice. "Preliminary price $40 a share, 1.1 billion market cap, unicorn status." I stood in my apartment holding the phone to my ear, frozen. It felt like sunlight breaking through after months of storms. But I had no idea that just minutes later, another message from my father would hit me harder than any boardroom battle ever had. The morning of graduation, I woke before my alarm. Sunlight cut through the blinds, a sharp line across my face. My phone buzzed. Jennifer's name lit the screen. Preliminary price came in, $44 a share, 1.1 billion market cap. Unicorn. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. 3 years of grinding, 20-hour days, endless rejections, and now, here it was. I slipped the phone into the hidden pocket of my dress. Cap and gown, hair smoothed, deep breath. The campus was already buzzing. Families clutching cameras, graduates in clusters, laughter floating in the air. My mother was in the crowd, waving. My brothers stood beside her, suits crisp. And my father, standing a little apart, arms crossed, expression unreadable. We made brief eye contact, no smile. I took my seat with the other graduates. The speeches blurred, names were called one by one. Halfway through, my phone buzzed again. A text. From my father. Don't expect any help from me going forward. You're on your own. No congratulations. No, I'm proud of you. Just that. For a second, the sound of applause around me felt muffled. My pulse pounded in my ears. I stared at the words, the way he always chose them like small, precise cuts. They called my name. I forced myself to stand, walk, smile for the camera, shake the dean's hand. The diploma felt heavier than it should have. Stepping off the stage, my phone vibrated again. Jennifer, this time. Sophia, the IPO is official. We're public. I stopped in the shadow of the stage. The noise of the crowd swelled, but her voice cut through. We just opened on the NASDAQ. You're the youngest female CEO of a billion-dollar public company in the country. 10 minutes. That's all it had taken, from my father's message cutting me off to this. I looked back toward the crowd. He was still watching me, our eyes locked. For the first time in my life, I didn't see doubt. I didn't even see anger. I saw something closer to respect. But I wasn't going to let that be the last word. After the ceremony, the graduates spilled into the quad. Families hugged, cameras flashed, champagne popped. I made my way through the crowd toward my family. My mother hugged me first, whispering, "I'm so proud of you." James and Thomas congratulated me with awkward pats on the back. Then my father stepped forward. "Congratulations on graduating." It sounded like a formality, like he was reading from a script. I met his eyes. "Thanks. Oh, by the way, we went public today." He blinked. "Public?" "NASDAQ, $44 a share, 1.1 billion market cap." For a moment, he didn't speak. The silence stretched. Finally, "That's significant." I smiled, letting the pause hang in the air. "And I did it without a single dollar from you after that first year." His jaw tightened. My mother glanced between us, tension crackling like static. "I wanted you to learn to stand on your own," he said. "No," I replied evenly. "You didn't believe I could." The crowd noise around us faded in my ears. It was just the two of us now. "Well," he said, "you proved me wrong." "I didn't do it to prove you wrong," I said. "I did it because I knew I could, even when you didn't." For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then he nodded once, a small gesture, but more than I'd ever gotten before. That night, there was a formal dinner for graduates and their families at the faculty club. White tablecloths, string quartet in the corner, waiters moving silently between tables. I sat at our table, flanked by my parents. Jennifer had been invited too, at my insistence. Halfway through the meal, one of my professors stopped by to congratulate me on the IPO. "We're all very proud, Sophia. Quite an achievement for someone so young." My father listened quietly, swirling the wine in his glass. When the professor left, he turned to Jennifer. "You're the CFO?" She smiled. "Yes, it's been quite a ride." "And you believe this valuation is sustainable?" Jennifer didn't flinch. "Absolutely. This company is built on solid technology and leadership." His eyes shifted to me. "Leadership, huh?" Jennifer met his gaze. "Your daughter runs one of the tightest ships I've ever seen. Investors trust her, clients trust her, and frankly, I'd follow her into any market." For once, my father had nothing to say. Later, as the evening wound down, I stepped outside to the terrace. The city lights spread out below, cool air brushing my face. Footsteps behind me. My father. He stood beside me for a long moment, hands in his pockets. "You know, I always thought business was about controlling risk, keeping your head down, not chasing shiny things." "This wasn't a shiny thing," I said quietly. It was my thing. He nodded, staring out at the skyline. Well, looks like it paid off. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even close. But it was something. The next morning, headlines hit the business section. Secure Connect soars on first day of trading. Youngest female CEO rings the bell. Messages poured in. Investors, clients, old classmates, even people who'd rejected us in the early days sent congratulations. From my father? Nothing. Until late that night. One line, no punctuation. Dinner next week. It wasn't warm. It wasn't effusive. But it wasn't silence. And in our language, that meant progress. In the weeks that followed, the IPO money fueled expansion into Europe and Asia. Our client list exploded. Jennifer managed the financial chaos. Catherine kept me grounded. I worked harder than ever, but this time with the weight of knowing the market was watching every move. And in quiet moments, I thought about that text at graduation. The one that had landed like a punch to the gut. I realized something. It hadn't been the cutoff that drove me. It was the knowledge that no matter what he believed, I would choose my own future. That was my real victory. By the time summer rolled in, my father had come to the office twice. The first time to see the operation. The second, to meet with our head of engineering about a potential partnership with his company. Business, of course, always business. But each visit ended the same way. He'd stand in my office doorway, give a single nod, and say, "Keep it up." It wasn't love. It wasn't pride, but it was respect. And after all these years, that was worth more than any check he could have written me. That's why, when the NASDAQ invited me to speak at their Women in Leadership Forum, I said yes immediately. Standing on that stage months later, I told the story, not just of Secure Connect's growth, but of the girl no one believed in. I saw Jennifer in the crowd, smiling, Catherine giving me a thumbs up, and in the back row, my father. Arms crossed, expression neutral, but he was there. When I stepped off the stage, he was the first to shake my hand. "Good speech," he said. I didn't need more than that. Because in the end, I'd learned something far more valuable than how to scale a tech company or navigate an IPO. I'd learned that sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't making someone eat their words. It's building something so undeniable, they have no choice but to stand in its shadow and know you built it without them. The months after the IPO felt different, not quieter. The pace was still relentless, but steadier, like the current after a storm. Investors called with ideas, not just demands. Clients came to us, not the other way around. And the press finally stopped framing every headline with the words, "female founder," like it was a qualifier. I was just a CEO. One Friday evening, I stayed late in the office. The city skyline was washed in gold, the hum of computers filling the quiet. I walked through the empty floor, the glass-walled conference rooms, the rows of workstations, the Secure Connect logo catching the last light of the day. This wasn't just a company anymore. It was proof. I paused by the server room, remembering the nights I'd coded alone in my dorm, running on caffeine and stubbornness. Back then, I couldn't imagine this scale, these people, this responsibility. Jennifer appeared in the doorway, jacket over her arm. "You're still here? Just taking it in." She smiled. "Enjoy it. We earned this." The next week, my father came by again. No warning, just appeared at reception, asking for me. He walked the floor slowly, hands behind his back, like he was inspecting something important. In my office, he sat across from me, gaze fixed on the city outside. "You've built something solid here." I waited. Compliments from him always had strings. "When I started Anderson Building Supply," he continued, "I didn't think anyone could work harder than I did. I was wrong." I didn't reply right away. Part of me wanted to savor it. Part of me wanted to deflect. "I didn't do it alone," I finally said. He nodded once. "Still, you did it." It wasn't the apology I used to dream about, but I realized I didn't need one anymore. That summer, Secure Connect opened its first European office in Berlin. I flew out for the launch, met with clients, toured the new space. One evening, I stood on a balcony overlooking the Spree River, the air warm and heavy with the scent of street food from the market below. I thought about the girl I'd been at 18, standing in the driveway with my suitcase, hearing my father's doubts like a final warning. She wouldn't have believed this life. I pulled out my phone, opened the graduation day text from my father. I didn't delete it. I didn't need to. It was just part of the story now. Back home, life settled into a rhythm. Mornings in the gym before sunrise, Back-to-back meetings until lunch, strategy calls with our Asia team in the evenings. But I carved out time for things I'd neglected. Dinners with friends, weekends without email, the occasional hike to remind myself the world was bigger than my to-do list. Jennifer started talking about the next big move, acquisitions, new product lines, maybe even a second IPO for a spin-off. For the first time, I didn't feel the need to rush. We'd built something that could stand. One Saturday, I drove out to my parents' house. My mother greeted me at the door, pulling me into a hug that still smelled faintly of her perfume. My father was in the backyard working on the old grill. "You're early," he said, without looking up. "Figured I'd help," I said, picking up the tongs. We worked in silence for a while, the smell of charcoal and sizzling meat between us. Finally, he said, "Your company's in the paper again. Big contract with that bank." "Yeah, it's a good one." "You keep this up, you'll outgrow the old man by a mile." I smiled. "That's the plan." He chuckled, just once, and for the first time, it didn't feel like a competition. In September, I was invited to speak at a conference for young entrepreneurs. I stood backstage, listening to the murmur of the crowd, the shuffle of chairs. When my turn came, I told them the truth, that people will doubt you, that sometimes those people will be the ones closest to you, and that the only way through is to keep building until your work drowns out their voices. When I stepped off the stage, a young woman stopped me in the aisle. "My dad says tech's not for girls, but hearing you, I think maybe I can prove him wrong." I smiled. "Don't just prove him wrong. Prove yourself right." That night, alone in my apartment, I stood by the window with a cup of tea, watching the city move. Somewhere out there, deals were being made. Companies were rising and falling. Dreams were starting and ending. Mine had started with a single decision, not to let someone else's limits define me. It hadn't been easy. It hadn't been clean. But it had been worth every late night, every rejection, every quiet moment of doubt. And now, for the first time, I wasn't building to prove anything. I was building because I wanted to. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A text from my father. 2 words. "Proud of you." I read it twice. Then I put the phone down and got back to work. Because the best part of this story wasn't that I'd won his respect. It was that I didn't need it to know my worth.